Flashgitz.
Hey, we're Flashgitz. We make YouTube cartoons, and it's all about getting ourselves another Flashgitz cartoon show. And that's what we're doing today, our new Zelda cartoon. Okay. Straight back to it. The next step is going to be gathering the new voice acting lines from our cast, but we're still trying to make that happen, so today I'm moving on to creating new art assets. Everybody watching on Twitch got to see me draw Zelda and some other odds and ends for the cartoon, but this last weekend I drew Link's dirt bike, which, let me tell you, was a cunt and a... So this is a video about how I drew the bike, and this is a video about more or less how I draw everything in all of our cartoons, so enjoy. Here we go, boys. So my first step is gathering reference to some pictures of the bike and also our link so I can match the line weight and scale properly. I start off with sketching everything I draw in Flash, always. I start with blue here because it's going to make the sketch easier to trace with other sketches and the finished lines later. It took a while to get the proportions right here. The bike needed to be distorted and dumb looking in the same way that Link is. The original in the game is really big compared to Link, but ours had to look like something our version of Link could actually climb on with his stubby little legs. I also think it's important for the art to have unity with the rest of the world you establish. In the case of the bike, making it look really streamlined and slick would have made it seem serious, which would be fine if there was a joke about, you know, the bike being serious, but for our purposes, I think the more realistic proportions would have actually hurt the comedy. So right here I'm starting a second sketch over the original inside a group symbol. I like to draw everything in group symbols because it just keeps the process simple and isolates all the little messes I'm making. They're also a really nice, fast and easy way to simulate tracing paper. So now I can draw on top of what I was drawing before without f***ing it all up. Anyway, with this second sketch, I'm starting to figure out details. It was at this stage I decided to erase that boring horse head and slap a far handsomer ravicorn head on. Then I spent another 15 or 20 minutes fumbling with making that look right with the bike. So a whole lot more erasing and brushing and adjusting later, you end up with a nice sketch. And now we're on to the most frustrating, time-consuming part of drawing something in Flash. The cleaning stage, where we put down finished lines. I'm gonna draw everything as individual parts that I'll keep separate with those group symbols. This usually involves making a bunch of shit up. It's kind of like if you imagine dismantling an action figure. You figure out how all the parts are gonna fit together and what the bits you don't see would have to look like for it to actually work. Obviously the end game is to make all of this move, so with my groups I'm keeping all my moving parts separate and ready to go as I draw them. So here you see me drawing and redrawing the same shit over and over again. This is a basically ubiquitous practice between all digital art people. It's just the way the software works, where most of us need to lean hard on undos to get the stroke to calculate correctly, like it would on real paper. For me, this is all to avoid wobbly lines. In this style, I like to keep things smooth and sharp. I think it's fun to achieve something that looks like it took a long time to draw and refine, and of course, doing things this way does take me a long time to draw, so there you go. Everything is all my fault, and that's why these cartoons take so long to make. Anyway, this goes on for literally 3 hours or something, which sounds crazy long, but I sort of shot myself in the foot here by committing to something really complicated early on. And that's just how this fucking goes. I just can't help myself. So as I draw, there you go. I take the drawing piece by piece with new group symbols, keeping those moving parts separate. Sometimes I'll even draw something I know isn't going to have moving parts in separate groups anyway, just so I'll have the freedom to rearrange and adjust the parts after to make it look right. Now we get to the wheels. For these I use lines and shape tools because there was just no way I was drawing those circles nicely. From there you just get everything just right, then go modify, shape, convert lines to fills. And now I can go back with my mouse and smooth and straighten everything to fool all of you into thinking I drew these freehand. I really dislike the really sterile digital look you get when you don't at least try to cover your tracks, things like that. Yeah, I think the freehand stuff just has more soul to it. So where I can't freehand something or don't have time, I'll always try to at least make it look like I did. Alright folks, so now we've got some finished lines, so now it's on to color. I take it piece by piece, starting with my base tones, then figuring out highlights and shadows. To do some cell shading, I use the pencil tool to define a shadow, then select everything and set the pencil color to null. That's the box with the red strike through, to make all those gross lines go away. I've also found you can really finish off and sell that cool metallic look by isolating the edge lines of a piece and filling them in with a highlight color. It can really make the part pop and feel geometric in a way that sort of makes you want to touch the art. After I finish one piece, I take a little bit of it with me into the other groups and use it as a color palette to keep all the parts consistent and keep track of what I'm doing. Once everything is colored, at this point I swoop around and make some pedantic little adjustments. I noticed I'd missed a bunch of the edgy lava things from the original, so tried to go around and reintroduce those. And finally, to tie it all up, I copy the glowy blue bits, paste them in place, and make them movie clips. And then I set their blending mode to add, give them a nice blur, and drop their alpha to give them all a cool, subtle glow effect. If you're really subtle with this, it can really breathe an extra little bit of life into the art, but I've found it's really easy to overdo it. In most cases, I think you want the effect to go mostly unnoticed. So after it all, it still feels like you're looking at a cel-shaded cartoon. And that's the bike. Drawn. The last part of my pipeline about making an asset is animating whatever simple thing I know that drawing is going to have to do in the cartoon. So obviously in the case of the bike, I knew I would need it to accelerate from just sitting there. But that was totally simple because of our group symbols, so all the moving parts in my wheel were already isolated and ready to go to make that happen. So after tinkering with that, we end up with this. And there you go. This might have been the most intricate thing I've ever gotten to draw for one of these cartoons, so it was a real pleasure getting to do a time lapse, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you want to see more nitty-gritty stuff about the cartoon as it progresses, some new drawings and stuff like that, you should check out our new Project Updates sub-channel on our Discord, where I'll be making an effort to post new art and little animation things as the project moves along. And we'll see you next time for the next step of this cartoon, sorting out the voice acting.